After creating a strat column, a diagram can be exported in two ways. For this example, I'll use a strat column I generated from 3 described sections in my project. So the strat column is called strat all data types. Because a strat column is a PSICAT section like any other, you can use the File, Export, Diagram dialog to export a diagram with the current column layout and settings, just as you would with a single section. So I can find my strat here. I will leave settings at the defaults and just export. And there we go. Diagram just like a single section diagram, more or less. Contains all of my strat column. So that's one option. But for exporting strat columns, we recommend using the File, Export, Stratigraphic column option, which is intended, per the name, for the export of strat columns. It is very similar to the diagram export dialog. It has units, it has page formatting options, it has these drawing options. But it does differ in a few ways. First, you can only export a single strat column at a time. You can add a title that will be displayed above the strat column. And most importantly, you can customize the presence, order, and appearance of columns that will appear in this exported strat column. This dialog works exactly the same way as the View Diagram Options dialog. However, the changes you make here will only affect exported strat columns. It will not affect the live editing diagram or diagrams you export through the Export Diagram option. So first, I will just do a regular export without changing these options. You also have to choose an output file here instead of a directory as you do when exporting diagrams. So I'm just going to call this strat1 and export it. And this will look pretty similar to the export diagram version, except that my lithology column has much more width, and you'll notice that I don't have an image column here, which was empty because I didn't use image data in my strat column generation, which again has various problems, so we recommend not doing that for the most part. Anyway, but you can see in general the formatting, the font, everything looks very similar to an exported diagram. It's just a slightly different set of columns and layout. So that's the second way to export a strat column, and generally we consider it the best way to export a strat column, even though you could set things up such that this would be exactly equivalent to the export of a diagram. There are 2 columns that are particularly useful in strat columns, a legend column and a section name column. The legend column automatically generates an item for every description type used in the strat column, creating a legend. The section name column shows the ID of the section the descriptions in that depth interval originated from. So let's add both of these to our diagram, and then we can look at them more closely. So I'm going to add a section name column. I'm going to move that to the top of this list, or the left of the diagram. And I'm also going to add, a legend column. And we'll leave that at the end. And I'm just going to leave these at their defaults right now, and we will generate a strat column with them. Legend and section name columns. Okay, I'm just going to export this to strat1. So if I export this, okay, you can see we have 2 additional columns here. So on the left we have the section column, so you can see it's kind of small. You can see that we have the name of the section that this interval originated from, this first 163 centimeters, and then the name of the next section where this material came from, and finally the third section that we pulled descriptions from to generate the strat column. So that's what the section name column does, and then on the far right we have a legend. And it is broken down by subtypes, so it should have all the lithologies for all the descriptions in our strat column, all the grain sizes, all the beddings, and all the features. Now, as I'm sure you've noticed, the legend column does not look perfect right now, like this text is spilling off the page, these overlap each other. We can correct that by either widening the legend column or adjusting the font size and icon size for items in the legend. So let's look at that real quickly, see if we can make this look a little better. So we'll go to legend, and let's change the options instead of the width. So I'm going to make symbols a little smaller. I'm going to make them 28. I'm going to make the font size 9 and the header font size 11. I think that will probably be enough. So let's try this. Let's try this version 2. Strat 2. Export that. Okay. So now you can see our legend looks a little better. This is no longer bleeding off the page. Nothing is overlapping. So this looks pretty good. So with a few tweaks, generally you can make things look nicer. PSICAT is not very smart about laying things out perfectly or making things look nice. So you'll always have to make some tweaks typically, given the space you have and the column widths you choose. PSICAT is certainly not Adobe Illustrator. Its primary goal is to be a data capture tool, and export is secondary. But with some tweaking, you can usually get a pretty decent result that you could then further clean up in Illustrator if you want to, or some other PDF editor. So that is the legend column. And then I want to talk a bit more about the section column. As you can see, this font had to be made fairly small to fit the available width. There are a few ways to deal with that and make section names more easily readable. So let's look at the section name options here. So there are a couple things we could do. One thing we could do is make the text draw vertically instead of horizontally. So that's one simple solution. If we export this to 3, show you what that looks like. So as you can see now, the section name is drawn vertically, so it has more space. It's not limited by the width of the section column anymore. So that's a little more legible, which is nice. Another approach, which you could use in combination with vertical, is you can omit certain text from the column name, or sorry, excuse me, the section name. So all 3 of our sections, you might notice, have the same prefix. They're all glad4 dash HST03 dash, and then 1C, 1H, 2H, 3H. So basically that prefix is sort of redundant. We know that all of our sections are from that project, and so we could remove that by entering in the omit text box here. So I could do glad4 dash HST03 dash. If I do this, so it will eliminate that in the section name in the column. So for this, it would just draw 1C-1H-1. This one 1C-2H1. This one 1C-3H1. And by shortening the string, it allows PSICAT to make that string larger. Here, we'll go back to horizontal. So with those options in place, let's do a V4 here. Export. And so now you can see we're drawing it horizontally, but because we've shortened the length of the text, now we can make it larger. So it's a little more legible. So that's a brief demonstration of exporting stratigraphic columns and the options you have available to you. We recommend including section and legend columns where useful, and that gives you a sense of how to modify their options and how to use them.